Greetings, beloveds. Today, let's take a look at how to determine earlier breakout levels for stocks, cryptos, or any trading instrument. But first, I greet you in the love light of the one infinite creator. Now, I've been doing breakouts for paid clients since about 2002, so almost 23 years of day-to-day breakout tracking and recommendation, and also I've developed many methods on how to determine the best quality breakouts. Now, one of the things that usually comes into question is, what is the breakout level? Now, I'm going to use the current Bitcoin weekly chart or the current Bitcoin charts to explain that there are some levels that we can use for early entries. Now, here's Bitcoin. This is a 2-year weekly chart. Now, this is the most recent or the current all-time weekly closing high at just about 10,000, not 10,000. Let's call it about 104,300-ish. So it's this weekly closing high there. So that is one logical level. So you can wait for BTC to clear that level. In fact, that happens to be around the high for the week, but it is below that level. Wait for it to clear this level for there to be a true weekly breakout. Now, that's one approach. You can take a look at the daily, and the daily here we can see that we would have to go to the daily closing high. I believe it's somewhere there. In fact, let's take a look at a closer view. Let's go about 6 months daily. All right, so this is 6 months daily. You can see if you're going to wait for the daily close breakout, you have to wait until BTC clears the level around 106. So that's a long ways away. So you'd have to wait for BTC to clear this. Now, you can see, by the way, if you go back, there's this failure to break out in this zone. So the market is aware of this level here, this close. So that is at about 106K. So that's another level that you can also use as a breakout level. Now, believe it or not, there are those who wait for the ultimate intraday breakout. So this is the intraday high here, about 109 and change. So you'd have to wait until it comes to that level and for a breakout to take place for that to be your entry. Now that's at about, again, 109. Okay, so you can see we have variables in terms of where to go. Now, let me show you my way I look at this is, so the way I did this is I'm taking this close and this close into consideration. Now, why would I use this close here as a breakout level? I'll tell you why. It's because in my thinking, this was a breakout here that actually failed. So it failed. And because it failed doesn't mean that we can't use it again. It failed once it went back below this level here. That was a failure. So in my experience, sometimes instead of waiting for this monthly, this is a monthly, by the way, instead of waiting for a monthly breakout, which in this case would be at about, let's call it, it's about 102,000 and I think about 102,412 actually. I think it's depending on what exchange. It's this monthly closing high from January 2025. Now, the one that I used was this one here, the lower one. And that's why you can sometimes, just based on how things played out, you can use a lower entry point. In this case, the lower entry point would be at about 96,473. Now, that's the one I use for my paid clients. And in doing so, we don't have to wait for the higher breakout levels. In fact, the level that we took here, this is the ETF GBTC that I sent a breakout alert late in April, a couple of weeks ago, in anticipation of this breakout. The level here is at about 77. As you can see here on my paid website, this is March 23rd, 2025. And I mentioned the two breakout for the two ETFs that track the crypto market. Entry point there was at 77 instead of waiting for the higher breakout level. Now, the one main advantage of using a lower breakout level is you don't have to wait for higher breakout levels. And in fact, it actually gives you a cushion because once you're in the instrument well before the official quote unquote breakout is now what happens at the next level. If it fails to break out at a higher level, then you already have a cushion, if not a small profit. And by the time it starts turning around, you can get out with a small profit well before the market goes on a big drop. So regardless, either way you want to cut it, is we still expect that if the BTC market, the crypto market, is to do well, all of these breakouts are going to eventually be clear to the upside. So net really, it gives you an early entry point, but you still do need the instrument, in this case BTC, to continue adding on to its breakout level and record higher, substantially higher intraday highs. I am Eric with Mother.com. I leave you as I found you in the love light of the one infinite creator. Go forth rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one Creator. Adonai.